assassination can only be tragic, irrespective of the cultural background or ideological leanings of the historian that deals with it. A novelist, on the other hand, can give the whole matter a comical or farcical twist in presenting Kennedy in heaven, confessing of his affairs, personal and public, in an attempt to atone for having led a fake life, as it is the case in Robert Mayer's novel I.J.F.K. Although less acrimonious than intellectual historians, postmodernist literary critics share their basic assumptions. They term Libra a postmodernist novel because it draws on what they consider to be the first postmodern event in American history and because it uses postmodernist techniques to deal with it. Dallas, November 22, 1963, has often been referred to not only as a turning point in the 20th century, but also as the event that ushered in the postmodern era. Thomas Carmichael argues that Libra plays upon this cultural phenomenon extensively and that it dramatizes the crisis of representation that history writing continues to undergo. Furthermore, the critic maintains that DeLillo illustrates the shift from the modernist to the postmodernist paradigm most clearly in the narrative trend dedicated to the character Nicholas French and his efforts to write a secret history of the Kennedy assassination for the CIA. At the character level, though, Oswald is the one most extensively analyzed within postmodernist parameters. He is the marginal, misgendered figure who lives his life in claustrophobia-inducing spaces, struggles to become part of capitalized history, and writes his way into a framework more coherent than the one he experiences daily, even though his texts are inarticulate and at times incomprehensible. Oswald's divided personality is most apparent at the end of the novel when he is killed by Jack Ruby. The uncanny effect of his death is that he is portrayed as subject of and simultaneously witness to his own dying. Rather than considering Libra a piece of postmodernist fiction and more specifically another example of the flourishing genre of historiographic metafiction, other critics believe that DeLillo's alternative account of the Kennedy assassination shares in the humanist modernist endeavor to deal efficiently with chaos and to set the individual and collective consciousness at rest. By definition, historiographic metafiction purposely blurs the difference between history and fiction and questions authoritative and authorized historical truth. Libra goes beyond this rationale because, on the one hand, DeLillo uses historical evidence quite substantially, even as he draws attention to the fictionality of his account, and on the other hand, there has never existed an undisputed explanation of the Kennedy assassination. The Warren reports raised question marks and suspicions from the very day of its release. Therefore, it would be fair to say that Libra is modernist in content and message, but postmodernist in technique and treatment. As a work of imagination, Libra is both world-reflecting and self-reflective in a well-balanced proportion. Rather than endorsing an attitude of skepticism and distrust about the possibility of reaching a satisfactory explanation or about the use of undertaking such an endeavor, Libra reflects the prosecute, that is, to ask first and foremost who did it, would postpone asking such a question or even discard it, and would instead embark upon a quest for broader schemes that are irrelevant if one lacks the basic knowledge and evidence that builds a case. The first to follow Garrison Costner's advice to take nothing for granted and question everything were the journalists, historians, and movie critics who opened up a debate on the legitimacy and the aesthetic merit of JFK from an early stage in its production. Irrespective of the take and tone of the reactions, the reason why JFK raised a storm of negative response is twofold. First, the movie advances a radical explanation but does not document it thoroughly, and second, it mixes fact and fiction and remains ambiguous about the quality and status of the final product. Oliver Stone's own statements don't help settle the conflict but fuel it up. If JFK is, quote, just a movie and a countermeasure to the Warren Commission report, as Stone himself termed it, then why is he so adamant to present it as fact by maintaining that the conclusion it reaches is based on documents and works written by people who have a direct privileged knowledge of the event? While admitting that his portrayal of Garrison is overblown, that his investigation was not always carried out by the rule, and that he only tried to offer a symbol of those who did not accept the Warren report for granted, Stone made the prosecution of Clay Shaw the element that led to the discovery of the conspiracy that killed Kennedy. The director seemed to approve of the district attorney's principle, according to which, quote, it was worth the sacrifice of one man if that led to the solving of the case, unquote. This kind of argument has boomerang effect on Garrison and Stone. They want the conspiracy to be exposed and the truth to be revealed because that would preserve the democratic basis of the United States, which is the rights and liberties of the individual above governmental power. Yet they don't seem to realize that their crusade violated the rights of one American individual, Clay Shaw. Other critics have addressed Oliver Stone's overall treatment of the Kennedy administration and especially the course it followed in foreign policy. Thomas B. Reed, for example, challenges the factual side of JFK on account of Stone's idyllic image of John F. Kennedy and his simplistic treatment of the Vietnam War. Although the accuracy of the movie is not an issue to be neglected, my intention is not to determine what is fact and what is fiction, and the percent combination that would make the result a factual or fictional product. My critique of JFK focuses on Oliver Stone's manner of construing authorship and on his limited understanding and use of the term fiction. Stone uses it with its secondary and derogatory meaning by which fiction equates lie. That is why he refrained to attach a disclaimer to JFK. He makes facts and fiction and decontextualized facts, and when critics express their doubts about the factual nature of the results, he describes the movie as a countermeasure, proclaims the impossibility of ever rendering an event objectively, quoting extensively from Peter White, and condemns historians for perpetuating a fairy tale-like approach to reality. Jim Garrison's prosecution best illustrates an attempt to go back to a life pattern of undisturbed innocence, even as it paradoxically claims to expose